Welcome to Key Conversations, a Making It in the Music Business podcast. My goal for this podcast is to help you learn from these conversations with both experts and working musicians and serve as a guide to assist your career in the process. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. Let's get going. Okay, welcome back to another musician edition where we feature a hardworking musician who's creating their dream career, open to a little guidance, and brave enough to be here in my hot seat. Today, I'm really excited to introduce to you Zach Sloan. He's a former fourth grade teacher and a lawyer for abused children who gave up his day job to make as much music as possible. And the way he describes himself, which I love, is he sounds like the boss taught Matchbox 20 how to fight. That's awesome, right? You can find it at ZachSloan.com. So Zach, thanks for being here. That's an awesome intro. I'm so glad I got to say those words together.
Well, thank you very much, Cheryl. I can't take total credit for that. I had some fantastic coaching on how to write a good intro.
Amazing. So you were an angel, and then you decided to quit being an angel, helping abused children to do music. Cool. So tell me, let's get the world of what you're doing. We can see your studio here, which is pretty cool. You got some drums and speakers, and there's clearly like live music stuff going on. But what are you doing right now? What fills your days in the music realm?
My days are mostly filled with working on my newest releases, and then booking live shows for myself, as a solo act and my band. I also do production, mixing, and mastering for other artists as well. That's less of my time, but it's definitely something I enjoy. But most of my time is really spent on my current working on my solo record.
Very cool. Awesome. So right now, are the streams of income for you from the live thing, or are you tackling any licensing or like building a fan list and selling CD? What does that look like? Or is it the multiple streams?
It's multiple streams. Live shows are the bulk of it. But I am always working on building my email list, which is just something that I've discovered is the most consistent way to have income coming in, because those are the people that buy my records more. When I put something new out, that list, they'll take care of that for me. But also, when I'm producing other people, there's income from that, mixing, mastering from that. I'm trying to do more licensing. I haven't had much success there yet, but I only recently started that since in December. So I don't expect to be fully rock and rolling and licensing in, just a few months. I know that takes time.
Got it. I love that you've got a couple different irons in the fire, but you're also clear on what's the long game. And, the email list, I'm dorking out this year on email lists. Super, super important. Something that was sort of always innately made sense for me, but to hear that you're actually you can trust them to support you when you've got this music coming out because they want to. It's not like, oh, we need to help Zach. It's like, yay, he's got new music. And
right.
That that's the context. It's much more empowering than thinking I need an email list so they can help me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a good context for your list. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. I pulled a lot of this from doing work with you, like in NMX4, is that, they are subscribing. They are saying, because by law, they have to want to be there. You can't just put people on. So they want to get your stuff. Don't abuse that privilege, but also remember that they want to hear from you. And so it's okay to send them things.
So very true. It takes a while to get that mindset. Like it really does. When we are in like starving artist mode, it's hard to not come from help me. So that's really awesome. Nice job.
Well, and I think, and you probably have said this, but I got this from you, but it's, if as soon as you start going into help me, bye, people tune out. You can't do that. If I sell more CDs, like I did a blog post at the beginning of the year, like sort of a 3-parter that I talked about a cancer scare I had where I thought I was losing my hearing. And I had more revenue. Like people went and started streaming my music more on Spotify. They bought my album. I never once said, please buy my CD. I said, here's my story. And then people went to my website from there. And so I don't have much success saying buy. I have success saying, here I am.
Ooh, that's amazing. I love that. With no, like, there's no manipulation in that. And just being like, here's what happened. And
Yeah.
here's how I feel about it. And just want to share with you. So
Yeah.
and I'm glad that you don't have any hearing loss.
Me too.
So you just said something, and I haven't talked about this a lot, that you have a blog post. So tell me how you treat a blog, because I get this question a lot and I always sort of like blow over it because I'm like, I don't know, should I have a blog right now? And my blog, Living on Gigging, got started when I was on tour and just stories I could think of back in 2008. So it's now 10 years old. It's turned into a little bit of how I do get my gigs and how I work at my career. And it's a little bit more of a music business blog now. But I always wonder, like, are people reading your blog in the same way they're reading your emails, or how do you manage like double the content? So tell me about your blog.
Sure. So one thing I've started doing in this year is that I'm trying to make my blog also something that can resonate in an email for my newsletter. So I may take a blog post and multi-purpose it and say, send it out to my email blast, but then also post it as a blog post. If it's something that's universal and is evergreen, essentially. If it's not an evergreen content, that's going to be exclusively a newsletter thing. So those are things like, my gigs. If I'm hitting a segment of my email list, say in Denver, that's not a blog. That's not going to be a blog post.
Right.
But my blog posts typically are longer and more in depth because I forget where I read it, but if your email takes longer than 3 minutes to read, it's probably not going to get read. And so if it's a longer post that's going to my blog, and if it's something that's shorter and has more of a call to action feel, that's usually going to be a newsletter. Did I answer the question completely though? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, no, it's a blog is a place to sort of expand on some of those ideas. I definitely think that repurposing the content is a really good idea. Even if you have a blog post that's really long, you could write the first 2 paragraphs or, one paragraph in the email and make a click here to read more. If people are interested, they can keep going. And then you can use the content from the blog post, get traffic both places and utilize both. But, I think that's really good especially if you are able to write and create content and you want something to, you want to cross promote things and sort of share your story, especially if that's part of your brand. I mean, it should be part of everyone's brand, but if being really authentic and sharing stories often and like being vulnerable is like, which it is for you, then blog totally makes sense. And cross-purposing the content is, I think, really brilliant. And when you say, I just want to clear up when you say evergreen. So evergreen is a term that I've been starting to hear a lot more, especially in the marketing world, but it means that it's something that can, play forever. There's not a timestamp on it. So if you say I have a gig this Friday, February 23rd, that's not an evergreen announcement. There's an expiration date on that essentially. But if you say, if you'd like to know more about my shows, go to my shows page on my website. You could send that in a automated email and someone can get that in July or December and it won't matter. So when you're talking about evergreen content, it means there's not really an expiration or it's not going to be outdated at any point. I love that you use that term and I just want to clear that up for anyone that didn't know.
No, absolutely. I agree with that completely. That's how I'm glad I used it correctly.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let's talk about what's next for you. What are you working towards? I always love to hear what, full working musicians are doing, but then also what are you, what's the path that you're on? You're headed somewhere. Where is that somewhere?
This is kind of fun. You're the third person I've told this to. First was my wife, and I did a radio spot last night and told the DJ, and now you. So this is really cool. Where I'm headed now is I was planning on releasing a full 10-song album in September of 2018. But I've since decided not to do that because after doing a lot of market research and using my email list to communicate with my fans and say, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a full-length album or would you prefer EPs? And the response was people said we'd actually like shorter chunks, smaller. So instead of doing a full album, I'm going to do 2 EPs spaced out about 6 months apart, which is fine. I mean, it's the material that I'm just sort of reallocating. But the idea going from here's 10 songs that I wrote to 2 companion EPs that when are combined will tell the story of how I went from a guitar player in Texas to a child abuse attorney to a full-time musician, and sort of when you put the two together, it becomes a concept album. So I still get to get my classic like 70s making a full album vibe going, but it's in pieces that are more digestible. So that's my big thing that's off in the distance right now.
That's really cool. And that story arc is interesting. And how do you, maybe this is too personal, but I'll ask it anyway. So how do you were making a difference for kids as a child abuse lawyer. And I imagine that was not an easy job to do. Do you miss you seeing the direct difference that you can make for people, or are you getting that in what you're doing with music?
Oh, it's both. What I can do with people for music is I can bring a certain I bring happiness and I bring, entertainment, and I share my story, and sometimes that resonates with people and sometimes it doesn't. But when I was doing child abuse work, and just to be clear, I represented kids who were abused in Colorado. So in Colorado, when a child is abused, they get their own lawyer. And so the parents have a lawyer, there's the county that's involved, and then I represent just the kids. And that's what I did. What I could do for those kids is something so different, because my goal was to provide safety. And so it does fill that service part of me, both roles. However, the service is just drastically different. So and you're right, it was hard, but also it was very rewarding at the same time. But just my psyche couldn't take it after so many years of doing that work.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing that you were able to contribute to the state of Colorado in such an amazing way. That's really cool.
It was quite the journey, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't actually, because I haven't ever done work like that. And that's super inspiring. But you did say Colorado. This brings me to another question that I get asked a lot. You are not in the hub of a major music.
Nope.
So how have you grappled with that? Have you, does location matter for what you're doing? Like, tell me your thoughts on that. Cause that's a question you hear around a lot too. Like, oh, you need to move to New York or LA or, Nashville or one of the music hubs. And my answer is no, you don't. You just need to be willing to get on a plane. You need to be willing to get on Skype. You need to be willing to put some systems in place. But I'm always interested to hear if I'm totally off base here. So I'd love to hear what you think, that fact that you're doing the full-time music thing in not a stereotypically musical hub.
Right. And I've gone even further away from it, because not only am I in Colorado and not in New York or LA, I'm not even in Denver anymore. My wife and I moved out of Denver because it was just too expensive, and we moved to Castle Rock, which is a small town. For me, it doesn't matter that much for a couple of reasons. One is that I've by developing an email list, by working hard on social media, I have people all around the country who like my music. Now, most of them are in Colorado, but I got a Facebook message, just a couple days ago asking me, I want to buy your album. Can you mail me albums in Nebraska? Sure. If you buy my album, I'll mail it to you. That's fine. I don't think it, because of the internet has, I think, leveled the playing field for a lot of that. And I actually find it to be kind of an advantage for me, because the market's not so saturated here. Right. I went to Nashville for the first time in August of last year for the CD Baby conference that you spoke at marvelously. And, and I remember looking around and talking to the local musicians and hear them talk about how hard it is just to get an unpaid gig. And I was like, it's hard in Denver, but it's not that hard. Right. And so not being in a saturated market helps. Now, the downside is that Denver's not a music city. And so a lot of the clubs don't take it as seriously as Austin, Los Angeles, Nashville, et cetera. So there's the pro and the con there. But it hasn't stopped me from doing what I love. There are musicians in Denver, too.
Yeah, right. I've heard of that. Yeah. Great. That's awesome. And I think that's the fact that you could go to the grass is always greener, or you could be a big fish in a little pond. We could throw out a lot more cliches here about this, but the fish in the pond is my favorite one. I use that all the time. Oh yeah. I always tell my bandmates, I want us to be the biggest shark in this, small, in this small pond, because
whatever. You're right, cliche, but I use it a lot.
Yeah, great. And I like that you're a shark. You're like, no, I'm not even a fish. I will eat the other fish. I'll eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's great. So I know that you've got a bunch of different styles of music, and you are an engineer, which is cool. So what do we get to hear from you today?
So you'll get to hear my single Porcelain, that will be coming out on the EPs I just talked about. But I currently released it because I don't believe in the current music industry. It makes sense to make people wait that long for music. So as I complete it, it's coming out in singles, and then it'll be packaged as an album. But Porcelain is a very special song to me because it was the first song where when I released it and I played it live, I went, oh, I can do this. Because I was lukewarm about the song, in all honesty, but I played it at a venue, and a fan of mine came out and said, I really like that song. I hope you record it. I hope you do something with it. And so I recorded it. I released it. And a couple months passed where not much happened with it. And then an indie radio station started playing it. And after a couple weeks, I get a DM on Twitter saying, hey, you should listen to our top 30 countdown. And it charted on their charts. It charted at number 15. And over the next few weeks, it eventually climbed to number 1. So it was my first number 1 single on an indie chart. And I'm very proud of that.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm so excited to hear what a number 1 indie charted song sounds like. So we're going to listen to Porcelain. Thank you for being so open and sharing everything. I mean, I know that's sort of who you are, but sharing with a lot of other musicians too. This is really inspiring, and thanks for being here.
And I think and I appreciate that, Cheryl, but part of that I learned from taking the MX4 course and really learning to be authentic and own who you are and own what your story is and present that in a way that can resonate with other people, because you're ultimately only helping others when you do that. So thank you, Cheryl. You've been such a coach and a mentor for me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And you guys, all these musicians I'm talking to are so nice. I'm not paying any of them to say these things, but I appreciate that. And it's always a pleasure to work with musicians who are clear that they want to do this thing for a living. So if you're in it for the long haul, I am in your corner. So,
well, thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Have a great rest of your day. And we're going to listen to Porcelain right now.
The bridge is bending and statues shake. We're descending with what's at stake. I can see what's coming from miles away. And you are loving, trying not to break my heart.
Please don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and YouTube if you like this podcast. Musicians like you keep me inspired and motivated, and for doing that, I'm offering you my Mastering Email 12-page workbook. It's packed with valuable exercises and information to get clear on implementing and mastering your email list strategy. This will help you figure out the best kind of platform for your specific goals, including a 7-step process to build, grow, engage, and monetize your list, all while feeling authentic and on brand with your music. Get your Mastering Email workbook at inthekey.co/masteringemail. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Key Conversations. The theme song on this podcast was provided by yours truly. If you're interested to find out more about my composing and songwriting projects, go to inthekey.co/Cheryl. If you're a musician looking to get some real results for your music career, then head to inthekey.co/results, where I've created a bunch of different kinds of resources just for you. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their point-and-click editor. All of the features you can imagine for a possible website are built in. So, because you're a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special month free trial plus 15% off if you do decide to sign up. Just for you. Go to inthekey.co/make-a-site to get the offer.
Say what you mean, I ain't made of porcelain. If you're seeking something, go find it, and if you need release, please stop biting your lip, cut to the quick. I'll find my way again, cracked and broken, but that don't make me porcelain. Now cracks. Oh, a lesson learned. Don't build a bridge just to get burned. No magic comes in waiting, and I won't be mistaken, 'cause this contemplation is breaking, but we ain't changing. If you love me, then love me. If you're leaving, then go. Get your tongue out your cheek, say what you mean. I ain't made of porcelain. If you're seeking something, go find it, and if you need release, please stop biting your lip, cut to the quick. I'll find my way again, cracked and broken, but that don't make me porcelain.